Yeah, we are recording now. This is the special session about broader implications of AI in the Macroexpand Deep conference. And we have 5 panelists with us who were so kind to agree to be part of this session. We have Josh and Kira and Ray and Siavash and Siyoung. And here we are, Ian and Danielle, the host of this session. And I think we'll begin with all the panelists saying something about themselves. So, you just say who you are, what you care about, anything you wish to say about yourself briefly. And so maybe, Josh, will you begin?
Yeah, hi everyone. First of all, thanks a lot for having me. I am a Clojure programmer and other stuff. I live in Stockholm in Sweden, and probably I've seen a lot of you at various Clojure conferences in Europe over the last 10, 15 years. I'm also host of the DefN podcast together with Ray, and we have another podcast called Politics, which Daniel mentioned. So I'm very happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Kira.
Hello, yeah, I'm Kira, a longtime fan of the Clojure community and SideCloj. I'm currently working full-time, primarily not with Clojure, unfortunately, but still sort of poking around and doing what I can in the sort of open source projects that I used to spend a lot more time on. And yeah, I'm based in Nova Scotia in Canada, the very East Coast.
Yeah, thank you. Ray.
Yeah, what Josh said. I've been doing Clojure for, I don't know, 10 years, something like that. After a lot of time looking at C and Java and other programming languages. I currently work full-time with Clojure at Exascale. So, and my opinions here are definitely not the opinions of that company. So don't worry about that, guys. But yeah, as Josh said, we're doing a few podcasts. I also do some live streams on YouTube with other people. So one of them is Apropos Clojure, where we do visual discussions about people's work setups and people do demos. I also do a very slow coding podcast called Content Made Simple, where we're starting a Clojure project around content management systems from scratch. So yeah, I love Clojure. I love the community. I love all this kind of stuff. I want to see it thrive. So that's why I'm here today.
Yeah, thank you. Siavash.
Hi everyone, I am Siavash and I am a Clojure developer for about more than 10 years. And I love experimenting different things, and especially I'm interested in developing apps which are somehow beneficial for the humanity, like what is related to the environment and for agricultural section. That's it for me.
Yeah, thanks so much. Siyoung.
Hi, I'm Siyoung. I'm currently based in Seoul, South Korea. Uh, I am a Clojure developer for some years now. I started using Clojure professionally while I was still living in Canada. Then moved to Korea about 2.5 years ago. Um, I really enjoy using Clojure in both professionally and also for the open source and personal projects. I'm hoping to continue to do so, but it's professionally, I think I'm still working with American company, like as a freelance contractor. But yeah, currently I think the working for SideCloj, working with SideCloj community has been really a fun thing. So in case I can't find any closure job in Korea, I think I'm all good. Anyway, I'm personally very, even though my professional field has been always like a B2B web applications, but personally I'm very interested in just in general the social impact by technologies and anything happening in this world. I feel like we're living in a very chaotic time. I mean, it's been the whole time, but I love to just see what's going on and also see as a small individual what I can do, what I can share, what I'm also very curious what other people think and learn their aspects and perspectives. So I'm happy to be here. Yeah, nice to meet you all. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. Right. So this is the session about broader implications of AI. In the middle of an AI conference, we're here to think about why we are concerned and what we can do about it, what it means to us, what is happening to us as Clojurians, as workers, as living beings in this time. And Ray proposed a brilliant structure for us to go through for about 1 hour. And then after that, we'll have some chat with the audience. And the way we'll go is that each of the panelists will first talk for up to 3 minutes about the title, what it is actually about this session, right? What this session means to you. Then again, we go around and each panelist will respond to whatever seems worth responding for up to 3 minutes. Then again, we go around and each panelist will focus on one topic they feel they should go deeper about. Then again, we'll go around and each panelist will respond again. So 4 cycles where we go around. Did I get it right, Ray? Yeah, thank you, thank you. Great. So I think we will just begin and ask Josh what this session is about.
All right. Well, happy to have the opening salvo here. So the broader implications of AI. Two things really strike me about the title of the session. So first of all, AI, what in the world does that mean? We're technologists, so I think it's good to be very precise. And AI is a marketing term. It just is. It was coined in, I don't know, 1959 or something. And in order to get grant money from the US Department of Defense. So I want to steer away from marketing and talk about what we mean by AI today, and primarily the way it's used in common usage. And what I'm going to focus on is hyperscale large language models. So when I say AI, unless I specify, that's really what I'm talking about. So then if we think about the broader implications of AI, as I've defined it, hyperscaled large language models, one thing that occurs to me is that this really, I believe, perpetuates the inevitability narrative. Like, we are stuck with this technology, so let's think about what it means. And I think that we should reject this. We should say, no, the hyperscaled LLMs as they are today, run by 5 enormous companies, like, we can't accept this. So we have to find ways to resist. And I also am sure that the technology itself, language models, the transformer model, the technology itself is not inherently evil or anything, but the way it's been deployed, it is. So the hyperscaled LLMs cannot be redeemed. They're beyond redemption. We have to destroy them and look for better ways forward. So are there ways we can use language models ethically and for the benefit of humanity? I think so. And I hope that that's one of the things we'll be thinking about today. All right, that's my opening thoughts.
Thank you so much. Kira.
Yeah, a lot of great thoughts, Josh. I'm really excited to be talking about this because Yeah, I guess I'll also add the preface. I think it goes without saying that, anything I say here is not representative of my company or anything like that. I'm kind of just a minion there. But yeah, I definitely, so, one note that I would like to add is that, I can't help but notice that like basically nobody does panels like this or talks about this stuff. Like the inevitability framing is kind of ubiquitous. And anytime you hear people discussing these technologies, um, it's often right in the framing of like they're here, they're great, how can we use them to make more money? And it's just kind of like that presupposes all this background, and there's so many assumptions baked into that I think really don't hold up if you actually dig into them. And I'm excited to sort of dig into some of those today. But you'll notice at like tech conferences and AI conferences, there is almost never, maybe literally never, a sort of like ethics angle, and companies, I mean, this was 2 or 3 years ago now, but basically totally gutted departments. This used to be a concern. There used to be departments and teams focused on sort of ethical AI development and applications, and then those people were all basically summarily fired with no like justification other than they were sort of getting in the way and asking all these inconvenient questions. And so we kind of just, as an industry, accepted that we're just not going to ask those questions anymore and plow forward anyway. I think that's just a huge mistake. And so I think there's a lot of value. And it's not to say we have to, necessarily throw this away, or like you're saying, Josh, like the fundamental technology is potentially, like a really great new way to interact with natural language. But if you see it as like a new innovation in natural language processing, as opposed to this, totally overhyped AGI precursor or something like that, I think it puts it in a little bit better perspective. So anyway, that's one of my thoughts. And then, the other, on the sort of more practical side, thing that dead horse that I keep beating is just the hype has gotten so out of control to the point where decisions about using these technologies are not being driven by technologists anymore, even really. I've seen, so, and my current company is of course no different than most, but I've only been there for a few months, and before that I was consulting, sort of wider sampling of industry companies. And even 6 months, a year ago, you saw it already starting. These decisions about using AI or integrating AI are coming from above for the most part, not engineers, not technologists, not people on the ground actually implementing, delivering, frankly, the value that is generating and like revenue for these companies. People actually doing the work. It's coming from largely like investors or executives who frankly don't understand the technology like at all. Like even the most basic like fundamental concepts of what an LLM is or does. They just have no grasp of it. And so, but there's this perception that it generates all this value. There's this perception that it is really, really important to use, or else you're going to be left behind, or you're wasting your money paying engineers for their time. If they're not using AI, then they're slow. And I don't know exactly where that, well, I guess we sort of know where that came from. But, if you're being charitable, you might say like, how did we get here? And anyway, I think, I just disagree fundamentally that capitulating to that just slop tsunami is the way forward. I don't think we should accept it as an inevitability that this is how it has to be. I don't think we have to throw out our, hard-won decades, like collectively here in just this meeting. There's hundreds of years of like very hard-won lessons about software engineering and how to write software well and how to ship products. And, basically, as like a jobbing software engineer still, we're being asked to throw all of that away and just basically like disregard your decades of experience and what you know about how to like, fix bugs and deliver products and work with customers and just use AI. And we've become sort of obsessed with the tooling and not the outcome. And I think nobody's really paying attention to the outcomes, because if they were, you would notice that they're actually not that good. I think, in my opinion, the outcomes, insofar as they exist, are actually negative. And I think, we have years now. These are not new technologies anymore. It's been around for, going on 3 years. And we have institutions like the sort of the Dora reports, and MIT does research about this. And they are finding by and large that, you know, teams that adopt these technologies faster actually perform slower and ship more bugs and rework more things. And it's the most surprising thing to me is that that's not landing. And it's kind of confusing to me how, you know, we keep getting this type of feedback and yet we're still being pressured to use more and more and more. And you know, to some extent, we've seen this before with, you know, like when containers and microservices and blockchains and whatever, any new technology that comes out, you kind of get this like swell of executives who don't understand it, trying to get everybody to adopt it. And then you spend all your time toiling away with these technologies that are totally not fit for purpose. And then usually, though, it kind of subsides. And, you know, it's not to say that like Kubernetes doesn't have a place. Like there are lots of very useful use cases for it, but it's not like every team all the time. Like not every web app needs to be deployed to a Kubernetes cluster. Not every single architecture needs to be microservices. And likewise, not every team needs AI and not every application needs AI. And it's not being thought of though as a tool in our toolkit or a potential, you know, like I said earlier, potentially interesting new like interface for your natural language features. It's being sold as this like thing that everybody has to use and that everybody wants to. We're like massively imposing it on customers with very expensive subscriptions, mind you, too. It's like clearly a kind of a cash grab, you know, to say, oh, we got this fancy new AI thing, but also it costs a lot of money. But don't you want it because you don't want to be left behind? So
This is
yeah,
great. Kira,
I'll
would be good to converge in a moment. Yeah.
that's perfect. Yeah, I'll leave it there. But those are some of my initial thoughts. Anyway, I'm excited to dig in. Thank you.
Fantastic. Thank you. Ray.
I love that initial set of thoughts, yeah, from Josh and from Kira. Slop Tsunami is a classic, absolutely. Yeah, my initial thoughts are that technology and politics are all about arriving at settlements or consensus. And sometimes that involves conflicts. And I think we're at a point where there is a conflict around what, can we get consensus? Can we get settlement? And sometimes we get settlements, to Kira's point, where technology becomes toxic, or when politics becomes toxic. You know, we get people booted out of office, or we get tech rejected. Examples of that are Google Glasses. We had a widespread rejection of their use in public. So people were called glass holes and stuff like that. They were generally shunned in public. And so the Google Glasses like flopped. Cryptocurrencies, another example of that. Bitcoin farms were thrown out of China because of their energy use. And then, of course, there was the Terra collapse of their so-called stable coin collapsed. And we thought actually that crypto was probably going to die quite a slow and painful death, which would be nice. But it unfortunately, these settlements are contingent. The zombies always come back. You know, it's like a horror movie. Meta are now coming out with these Ray-Ban glasses, like they're like velociraptors trying at the social fence, always trying to pop and push to see where they can go. Trump coin is an example of the cryptocurrencies, which is, again, super political. This is a direct corruption mechanism into the heart of politics. And so we arrive at the politics of artificial intelligence through that. And there's a thing that I like to call hellish AI. And it's hellish because H for hyperscaled, E for extractive, LLM, okay, that's the end of hell is LLMs. Imperialistic for the I. S, it sucks generally, but it also sucks clean electricity and clean water. And the H at the end is human suffering. That's the result. And I don't want to, that's not a joke. You know, human suffering is a result of this production and deployment of AI. And we'll come into that in a bit more detail later. Capitalism, at the end of the day, is all of these things too. And that's not an accident. AI is a result and an exact mirror of capitalism. Now, I'm definitely willing to criticize people for using hellish AI. And part of our motivation for starting Politex was to clarify our thoughts about these issues. And we've had some great discussions about that. But I don't want to settle with hellish AI. I don't want to say that we have to accept this stuff. Now, one of these days in the future, the far distant future, we can use these technologies and maybe we can arrive at a heavenly AI, okay? Maybe, but I want to work on that only afterwards, after we've dealt with the hell that we're in first. And that's my sort of introduction salvo.
Fantastic. Thank you. And now, Siavash.
Thank you, everyone. What I think about AI and LLMs, I think that it is not something evil in the nature of the LLM. It's most related to our use of it, or if I want to be more clear, it's more about the capitalism use of it, and also in the politics and war between nations. So it is the root of the issue. Any technology could have good and bad use cases. For example, ammonia could be used for both agricultural stuff and also for building building weapons. The same is for the LLMs. LLMs with big tech has a really huge dangers for the humanity. One of it is losing the privacy. I mean, for example, day by day, I ask OpenAI or what to do for different topics and so on. And after a long time, OpenAI knows me better than myself about every detail of my issues, my thoughts, my expertise, anything. And I even heard from some people that they start, some men and women, they start talking with AI instead of talking with other humans. And this is something that give these companies lots of information, which later could be act against them or against the society. Another interesting topic which should be, I think, discussed is micro-resistance possible? For example, open source is a resistance against closed source. The question is it possible we do a micro-resistance against these companies, or the solution is overthrowing the capitalism? It is both a political and philosophical issue, and also one thing that we should mention, that sometimes resistance against the capitalism became the part of the system and became something that makes system more stronger, something like identity politics, which at the first is something that was against the system. No system get it and do some change on it, and it becomes one of its tool for somehow managing the whole society, divide the society to different groups, and stop changing radicals. Sorry, it's my time is up.
Oh, we
That's
have time. I'm just marking the 3 minutes every time. Thank you. Yeah, and Siyoung.
Thanks for sharing all the very interesting points. I might have some overlaps here, but in my mind, I was thinking about velocity. So the hype started, once the hype started, and the amount of like the business ideas and the trends going around AI, I felt it was like personally super fast, even though using the technology itself and try to make something out of it, I felt some, I guess, efficiency, but at the same time, once I step back and see this whole trends and what's going on with this, like the trends in business and in the especially in the tech fields, I noticed that we stopped considering, especially like I said we, but just the more like the decision makers, the business owners or executives, they don't seem to have the long-term goal or the sustainable ways of keeping our business. More like it's just fast development and then fast exit with the biggest profit they can make. I just felt personally, human evolves, but like as a human, we evolve, but with a very like slow speed over time. And I felt this like the speed of like the trend and the hype changes and rapidly like what's wanted and what's like hot in this field didn't really like doesn't kind of match my own biological evolution speed. So at the same time appreciating this like all the tools that coming out and make it very available to everyone, I also felt smart and also dumb at the same time. And then recently I started liking to go around the city in Seoul because Seoul, the city had like selected the restaurants called like 100-year-old restaurants. So it's not literally like 100-year-old, but the city is planning to select they selected those restaurants and hoping that they sustain and keep the good business and have the 100-year-old tradition of whatever they're good at. And I really liked that kind of idea and initiation. But in the tech, could we bring that in? And could we actually think of like, oh, is there any companies we see next like 100 years that it will be a solid and also good for human in this society? Like I'm not sure. So thank you, Daniel. So that's the points that I wanted to discuss and hear what you guys think. Thank you.
That's brilliant. Yeah. Thank you so much for this round. Now we go round again and just respond. And I'll keep marking the 3 minutes every time. Josh.
Yeah, wonderful. I'm actually just going to pick right up on the thread that you were laying down there, Siyoung, because I think it's so important to ask, are we using technology in service of humanity, or is technology being used to make the human experience worse, right? I only want to use technology in the service of humanity. And I think, Siavash, you were making the point that technology is dual use. It can be used for good things or bad things. And I agree with you up to a point. I think, as I mentioned before, the kind of underlying technology, the transformer architecture, language models in general, like, yes, that's a neutral technology. The large language models we have today, I would say, are not a neutral technology. They are purely extractive, imperialist, and cause human suffering. Another thing that really resonated with me is this idea of velocity and things moving so fast. And, this is something that I've thought about a lot, that we are just moving too fast as a species, and it's causing psychological unrest, like for me personally. And, it's really interesting, this kind of move fast and break things ethos has penetrated our experience so thoroughly, and to the point, like Kira was saying, that there are all of these benefits that are just taken for granted, right? AI makes us more productive, obviously, but then you go and look for the studies actually showing this, and you find studies that you find tend to show the opposite, right? So the Financial Times recently ran a really long piece where they looked at public filings of US companies. And they showed, even though, the sentiment was something like 80% of people thought that AI, these big enterprise rollouts of AI, would increase productivity, they found no productivity increases, right? So this thing, all of these things just make me think, like, can we please just slow down have conversations about what this technology is, what it can and cannot do, and what we should and should not be using it for. So that's my kind of reactions to opening thoughts for everybody.
Yeah, thanks so much. Kira.
Yeah, I don't have much to add on top of that. I think that's sort of my main thing is it's like that I think a lot about is how can you drive conversations back towards the outcomes and the value? Because I think it's just at this point it's very clear that yeah, those we're not seeing the benefits. The benefits are hypothetical, imaginary future benefits. Like, oh, maybe we'll, somehow someday make all this drudge work more efficient or something like this. Or you hear about these like grand ideas of this like hyper sort of utopian, like techno utopian future where we're all just like free to be artists and AI is doing the work. And it's like, okay, that's maybe, cool to think about or daydream about, but today, and I would agree with you, Josh, that LLMs are not a neutral technology. Like we are burning through more capital than we spent on World War II every year developing these. We're consuming the Earth's resources at like unprecedented rates. There are real human impacts, like the cost of electricity in California has gone up, I don't know, like 40% last time I checked, probably double by now, because, it's like a weird unregulated country where there's no checks on private power generation. And if you have all these companies like willing to pay literally any price for electricity, that means normal people who actually need it to like cook their food are going to be forced to pay those prices too. And obviously better governance could address some of that, but I don't see that coming anytime soon either, especially in the US. And so, we have these very, very real harms today. And I think this is one of the points that you've brought up. I also like on your podcast, Josh, many times, probably lots of places. But we have these concrete, tangible downsides, and arguably concrete, tangible, like also outcomes. Except we're somehow being sold this dissonance, and it's time to just say the emperor has no clothes here. Like this is all bullshit. Like pretty clearly, there's like the people try to pull the wool over our eyes and try to gaslight us into thinking that this is all good. And I'm not saying there's no benefits. Like clearly, I think that's part of where the dissonance comes from. So I'll try to keep this brief. I have so many thoughts, but the average person I think does see AI as really cool. And I think part of the problem is that the tech industry has been so good for so long at making really complex, complicated technologies seem indistinguishable from magic, that they see this and they're like, it's just another cool magic technology, like the internet or like my cell phone or whatever. But it's not clear that what's underneath it is actually like way, way worse and very problematic in ways that some of the prior technologies weren't. Like, microservices aren't going to destroy the world or whatever. I mean, I guess they might, but yeah, I think it's time to kind of call out some of these claims and really just force a conversation and hold people accountable. It's if you're going to make these big claims that there's all these benefits, I think it's fair to say at this point, prove it. It's been 3 years now. It's been, billions and trillions of dollars invested. Like, what are we waiting for here?
Thank you so much, Ray.
Been waiting for me to speak. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's really good roundup, Kira. Actually, I mean, from me, I think it's like cool has a bizarre concept. Actually, just responding to your last point there, that cool, like, what does it actually mean? Like the iPhone was cool, because I kind of like did help you in many ways, Android and the iPhone, okay, let's say that they're kind of equivalent. Smartphones did help us in some ways. They helped us to like get from A to B easier. They helped us to schedule our lives, to send messages and all that kind of stuff. The tech actually did deliver some value. And I think you're right to question, like, what is the value of this thing? Because it's very nebulous. It's either it solves all the world's problems, literally, like we're burning the entire planet's electricity, water, and like intellectual property. We're just burning it all for the sake of it giving us an answer about how to solve climate change. Well, it's a bit weird because we already know how to do that. We actually know how to do that. We just don't like the answer. Or actually, I'm okay with the answer, but the people who run the LLMs, they don't like the answer. So this is the kind of problem that we're living in, like you say, a very Josh was saying, this hyper capitalized world where 5 companies are producing this hellish AI. Now, to respond also to Siavash, I agree, as Josh, I agree that that the LLMs, or in general, this tech could be kind of neutral, but OpenAI definitely is not neutral. It is, and the company is not a neutral actor. Sam Altman is not a neutral actor. Anthropic is not a neutral set of actors. Where are the good people? I'll come to that in my deep dive because I want to talk about this aspect of things. But I really liked your comment about privacy as well, and about how people are turning to the AIs. And that's a worry. And again, it comes back to human harm. People are actually harmed by this. Not only does it isolate them, but also people are, actively committing suicide and murder. This is a really crazy situation. I'm not quite sure where we have to get to before we have panels like this, where people say, actually, there's a 5-alarm fire. This thing is out of control. And I don't think it's out of control because of all these FLI people saying that it's going to become the Terminator and destroy us overnight. It's going to become what it is. It's what it is that's going to destroy us. It's not what it's going to be. It's already here. Hell is already here, and we need to fight it. That's my reaction. And of course, Siyoung, hype, velocity, I completely agree. This is something which we have to question. Are we actually being more productive? And who are we being more productive for? What is the purpose of this acceleration? I'm not entirely clear, but I think it's just to do with more money, number go up. It doesn't seem to have much to do with us on this panel, the human beings all around, actually thriving and enjoying our lives. We're sold on that, but I don't think that's the result. I think the fact that you can, like the president of the United States makes a video this week where he's a king getting into a fighter jet, dropping large amounts of shit on demonstrators on the No King's Day. This is the cool thing of AI. I want to define that as not cool. That is literally shit. And I want to describe, I want people to tell me what's cool. Now, just before I wrap up, because I know I'm going long, is a lot of programmers will tell you what's cool is, oh, I can generate my closure. I can generate this. I can generate my tests. I can generate my documentation. Now, okay, I see it. I get it. But look, every time I've been in teams where we've done the documentation, we've done the code generation, it's got it wrong. It's always, it can get it close to being right, very close, but it's wrong. You look at it in more depth and it's just wrong. It produces way more bugs than we want to admit. Although, again, I'm saying that people are admitting it eventually. They are finally admitting they're playing with it. It looks cool on first sight. It seems to be, wow, this is magical thing. It's producing the documentation that I couldn't be asked to produce. So this is awesome. But then you look at it and it's actually wrong. There are subtle things that are wrong about it. Part of the reason for that, by the way, is because it's too big. The model is too big. If we had perhaps more refined models, if we went away from this hellish AI towards a more understandable, intelligible set of technologies, then maybe we could actually reason through how to improve it. But we're beyond that time now. We're beyond the concept of reason in this technology. All we can fight is the narrative. Anyway, thanks for all of those inputs, because I think this is obviously going to be a really interesting panel. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Siavash.
Yep. I think as our friend mentions, privacy and also what LLM do in shaping minds is really could be really dangerous, as if you have a company and your company needs some support from the Congress and politicians, you and also the voters using your service. So it is possible that you would make your service shape the mind of the people in a way that the corrupted politicians, which are working for you, or you have lobbied with them, be elected again. And this is, I think, a real danger. And also they can shape mind about different topics. It is not the same for the internet. In the internet, even though some thoughts would be very niche, if you want to search thing, you can find that answer, you can find a blog about it, and see other aspect of things on it. But in the LLMs it is not. Somehow it is also removing the niche ideas and find a centrist approach. Another thing is that how it is going to change and removing the middle line of the politics, as economic pressure became higher in the West, and also they have more competition with China. Currently, the middle politics became much weaker in the West, both in the continental Europe and in the United States. The middle line is becoming much weaker, and some people like Trump or Bolsonaro and so on, as they are elected, they are symbol of this diminishing of a middle line. And what do AI do is it is putting much force on the white collars job, and this also make society much more divided, as white collar workforce does not have its previous negotiation power, and these cause more division in capital and money in the society. And this divided society go to the point which the struggle between classes became unavoidable, and it would not be solvable in the normal liberal format of capitalism. That's it.
Yeah, thank you so much, Siavash. And Siyoung.
Oh, thank you. I really like the question raising the what is the value. I really like it. Really just got me thinking. Also, the recent trend that I don't really look at LinkedIn app much anymore, but back in the day, a lot of companies advertise like whenever the company is on the best workplace for 2024 2023, and it was like pretty much the big marketing thing. But then I noticed the trend is I don't see those anymore. And at the same time, back in the day, the best workplace, the key metric was the turning rate. That actually the company still, they were trying to, make their company look good. But part of it was the key, the question, and they try to just make some value to it, was how to keep our people stay with us as long as we could. But I don't see that anymore. And I think nowadays the media or just the industry is just intentionally cover that as well, just trying not to focus on that anymore, because along with that, the jobs are getting less, and the company's focus is like, even though Kira mentioned, like every year they're spending more and more money than just like they're hitting the record, but they're not investing on human to ourselves, but on something else. And then, but then is it actually valuable? But we don't see that. And then and also like the point where there are actually people getting lots of harm from this, and it's such the repetitive history we see, that some big changes, big technology or big knowledge or big changes in the society happens, and then there's a good happen but also bad happens. But as a like whole society, as a system, doesn't really respond to the change, the rapid change immediately. There always a big or small portion of people get harms from it. And I felt like over this like course of like many centuries of us like evolving our system, our technology, our knowledge, and we're getting smarter and better. We thought we were making these mistakes less and less, but I don't see that. I feel we're just making the same mistake over and over, and there's still people always getting harm from it. And I think that's where it saddens me like the most. You know, it could be me, it could be my friends or family, and you never know, right? And seeing just the news, what's happening, it's definitely bothering me a lot. And then yeah, the technology, the admitting that it's not good. But thank you. But I will make a quick. But then we know that before admitting it, there's like this small group of people already getting huge like profits from it, and then once they get like, oh, I'm full enough, then I could admit it now. That also kind of the culture that I see, like this like disparity of like the power and the money. It gives that unbalancedness in this world. That also bothers me. Sorry, I'm just talking too much negativity.
We have time. We have time. Yeah.
But yeah, I'll stop here.
Keep going with the hate.
Yeah. So we're kind of in the middle of the structured part. And what we'll ask the panelists in a moment is to pick one topic each, one topic that you care about and you wish to go deeper about for 3 minutes. And while you're thinking for a moment, maybe I'll share a story. I didn't ask her permission, so I'll not say her name, but recently an old woman and I had an experience where we needed to deliver a message. We needed to deliver a message to a friend miles away, really far away, and they knew each other many years ago, and the language is forgotten, and we didn't even know how to write the message. And we used the language model to write the message. And then we were not sure whether it would be actually okay. Did it get it right? So we used another model to read it aloud to us. And it was beautiful. It was a soft and sweet message. And we were both kind of, moved by how beautiful it came about. And yes, this way we knew we could deliver the message miles away, years away, and it was important. And I'm mentioning that so we remember that this evil thing is also charming. It is really charming and moving people and affecting people. And I'm saying that after I can relate to everything you said, just so that we have this context that we are dealing with something which is very emotional as well. And now we can go around again. And Josh, you will begin and pick a topic to go deep about.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that story, Daniel. I think it is important to, again, just come back to the humanity of all of us together. And you almost changed my mind about what I wanted to dig into, but I'll stick with my original thought. I want to talk about what we must demand of this technology in order to use it for actual, like, the betterment of humanity. And just quickly to preface this, I want to say that there are really powerful societal forces at work compelling us to use this technology in our day-to-day work. Like maybe it comes up in our performance review if we don't AI hard enough, you know? So I want to just say, like, if you are in that position, I do not judge you in any way, shape, or form, right? Like you do what you got to do. If you are interested in the technology and experimenting with it, like, fine, I'm okay. I can understand that. If you go to work for OpenAI, you and I will not be talking anymore. But I just want to say, like, most of the people here, I believe, are in the category of people who are using it either out of curiosity or because they're compelled to, right? So you people are off the hook. And I hope now you will listen to what we need or what we must demand of this technology in order to build something better of it. And I hope that you then do that with your curiosity. So first of all, we need to insist on a high quality data set. Anybody who's worked with machine learning knows that it's garbage in, garbage out. And yet the training data being used for these LLMs is like some of the worst stuff on the internet, right? Mixed in with a lot of really good stuff too. But, you know, this is not a high quality data set. This is not consistently labeled. We need to guarantee that the data we use to train our models is not gotten through surveillance, trickery, basically active consent is what we need here. We need to make sure that the environmental impact of this technology is acceptable, right? So we can't accept, you know, needing 10,000 GPUs to train a model. Sorry, no. If that's what you need to train your model, fuck that model. We must insist that this is open source. Like to your point, Siavash, about open source as an act of resistance, I think it's way more complicated than that, but I think that's a great place to start. We must demand that we can at least see the code so we have a chance of understanding how these models are working. And finally, we need to insist on high quality outputs. So we cannot blindly trust what these models output. And, you know, just I'll finish here, Daniel, by going back to your story. I think the beauty that you experienced in that moment shows us how powerful language is. And language hits us somewhere right back in the brainstem. I don't know. I'm not a neuroscientist. But we so treasure communication as humans that we assign meaning to things. And I don't want us to be assigning meaning to a plausible sounding thing a machine spits out. So the quality of the outputs, and again, to a point Ray made earlier, I think the way we guarantee this is making narrower models, not these general purpose models that try to solve every problem. All right. Thank you so much.
Fantastic. Kira.
Yeah, I think this has been really interesting conversation. I like thinking about too that path forward, because I think, you know, like every technology, we're never going to be without this now. But I think we can probably get further insisting on some constraints and some sort of kind of compromises, as opposed to saying we're never going to look at transformers again, we're never going to look at language models again. And I think, you know, one of the paths forward that I could see that I'm moderately optimistic about is like what you might call small language models, like you're saying, like ones that can reasonably run. You know, there's still some barrier to entry because you need probably, you know, one expensive laptop or something like that. but it's at least not, you know, 5,000 or 20,000, $5,000 GPUs. And I think the open access thing is really important too, because we're at a point now, you know, where this one I'm not sure how to get back to, because basically it's at the point now where the researchers who are doing the actual computer science behind this can no longer afford to train or access these models and are sort of being like shut out of this domain. But that, you know, so you look at the landscape, and we've gotten rid of the researchers and we've gotten rid of the ethics teams, and so it's like, who's in charge here? Who's actually running the show, and who at these companies at this level understands the implications of what they're actually doing? And it's not clear to me what the answer is there. It's like primarily hype guys and like tech bros, and it's not clear that there's anyone in charge anymore who actually understands what they're doing or what the implications are of that. And so I think it's really important that we get back to this sort of more open access, more you might call it democratic sort of like distribution of the knowledge, and I think the sort of theoretical and academic underpinnings of it too are essential, because you can't get very far. You know, we've seen this, I think every technologist who's been asked to sort of uncritically and blindly adopt the technology, we all know how that goes. So, you know, I think those are all really key points. And I don't know what the way forward is. I don't know how to make any you know, progress in that space. I feel like we're still at a point where we're basically trying to convince people that this stuff isn't magic. But I could imagine a future where we land at a much more sort of reasonable place where progress is being driven by theory and academia and responsible governance, and the usage is primarily constrained to like individual machines or reasonably small models that actually are like benchmarkable and perform to some reasonable standard and are not consuming vast amounts of energy, like on the scale of a small country. But you know, I don't know if I have any concrete or good ideas about necessarily what the path to get there looks like. So I think right now that's where my headspace is mostly at, kind of what's the glide path. But it's interesting to think about anyway.
Thank you so much. Ray?
Yeah, I mean, I really want to respond to Kira, but I'll hold that until the following part. I want to just take a little bit of a deeper dive. I think inevitability, and the panel is about like the broader implications of AI. So I really want to just dive a little bit more into inevitability. And I think the fact, for example, that you know, why is this hellish AI seen to be inevitable? If you look at the polling, most experts and most people in the world do not want this AI. And despite it's cool, in fact, the reality is, in terms of like sentiment analysis, let's say, of the public, they're mostly against it. But let's be clear about, let's just put names on this stuff. There are 5 companies essentially that are dominating this hell. Anthropic, basically funded by Amazon and a bit of Google. Meta, X, who needs to say more, the master of hell himself, OpenAI, and Microsoft, because Microsoft basically fund OpenAI, and Alphabet. So those are the 5 companies. Which of these companies, I want the audience to think about, which of these would you represent? You know, some people talk about good billionaires and bad billionaires. I don't think there's a good billionaire, frankly. But if we look at good AI versus bad AI, which of these companies, which of Anthropic, Meta, X, OpenAI, which of these monsters, in my opinion, are good? Which are the good AI? Where is the good AI coming from these days? Where is the possibility even of a good AI? I just don't get it. You know, which of these people were not at Donald Trump's inauguration? They were all there. Now, interesting question is why? You know, so why is the inevitability why isn't an inevitability narrative coming? It's because there's a huge amount of lobbying. They're lobbying through the media because they own half of it. All of the social media algorithms are being driven by these companies because, again, they own it. You see in the US media recently, if any criticism of these companies or these technologies or these people, they start to shut it down. They start to freeze it out. Universities are being attacked on their research. There's a huge amount of lobbying here, but specifically for AI, they want to tap into the treasuries of the world. There's a huge amount of lobbying for government budgets in rich countries. If you look at the whole Doge thing was based around giving over the administrative state to AI. Who gets hired, who gets fired? The AI decides. Now we're talking about defense budgets. A lot of these companies. If you want to get subsidies, if you want to survive the AI bubble, how do you do that? You get government funding. You get government funding contracts for your defense. Also now surveillance is a huge thing in the States and in many countries around the world. They're putting a lot of contracts towards surveillance. The other thing that's really scary is that they're using it as a weapon against communist China, which is total bullshit. But again, they want to have some sort of way to justify their investment in this technology. We've seen in recent months that they're against any form of regulation or limitations on AI. They've been over to Europe and they've been to Canada saying, don't touch our AI, don't regulate our AI. And they've been in the American states and have told American states, do not regulate our AI. This is how they win the narrative. It's not an accident. It's coming at us at all levels, from all sides, at all places. This is not inevitability. This is well orchestrated messaging. They're using all of the planetary resources ahead of human needs. There's a lot of resistance to the production of data centers and to the robbing of clean energy and clean resources. But at the end of the day, if you've got the governments of many Western countries owned by these large corporations or client states of the US, let's be honest, then they're going to buckle. Now, from a software development perspective, these models are going to. They're trying to tell us, by the way, and they're saying this publicly, that they think that all human labor, all labor of economic value will be overtaken by these models. That's what they're trying to claim. This is crazy. We're adopting it and we're teaching it. We need to stop that. Software developers are in an interesting situation where they should see the emperor's got no clothes. But there's a problem here and I think we need to deal with this in a bit more depth. Maybe the audience are going to help us with this. Is how do we talk to ourselves in these communities? How do software developers talk to each other to deny this inevitability, to reduce this inevitability, to reject it? Maybe we can't reject the companies, but we can reject their work, and we can reject the inevitability of their work based upon, as Kira was saying earlier on, the fact that the outcomes just are not great. Right, I'm going to leave it there. I'd like another hour on this, but that's what the podcast is for. So I'll stop now. Thanks.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and it's good that we are gradually making it more and more actionable. We will think about what we are going to do, right? Yeah. Siavash.
I'm interested in talking about resistance against this thing. First, talking about micro-resistance approach, something that we should, if we see the history, and I think in one of the blogs, said on the earliest 20th century and 19th century, workers and anarchists start destroying machines to be somehow be against the wave of using machines and so on. It is one path of resistance, the anarchist way. The other thing is being isolationist, means that they, like the Amish people in the United States, we have our community and we do not use AI. It is also the same for the social network and so on. I remember that when the Facebook was growing, Stallman said Facebook is very dangerous tool and do not join it and so on. The other path is making it more democratic, means somehow putting regulations, remove big companies from responsibility on it, making government or university or something that completely open source all the decisions are clear and done by the people, not by organization. So it is another path. And but I think based on the current formation of capitalism, which first transformed from the liberal capitalism to somehow techno-feudal capitalism and now techno-fascism capitalism, this kind of resistance would not be possible because the whole system is completely against, even it is changing the formation of what it has in its liberal agenda. And if you review with past, you can see that those who tell that long live my opponent is now saying that silent my opponent. So the whole, I think, society is going toward fascism, and I'm not against the if you don't want to do anything, do not do micro resistant. But I think if we are really scared of the current trend or this trend which is built by those companies, you should solve it in the politics, in the not in the technology. I think this is the thing. So that's it.
Thank you so much. Siyoung.
So in terms of solution, I'm more, it might be detailed, but it's harder. So I have two things. The first thing is like, I really like the Kira's idea of like small model training instead of the currently like hyperscale model training. So in order to control that, we can think of like the current systemic things in place to see like a business doing something wrong in bed. So like, for example, with a model, if you want to train models, so anyone can train model, but if you want to, you know, train your model and then just like publish it as a product to business or just the general public, then I'm thinking like, you know, the working at a company, there is like SOC 2 audit. So the making sure that customer data is like taken care of like securely and very well. Like it's a similar thing that like there's, I feel the system, the hurdle that we should make to like making sure that someone or some organization, the government organization ideally, could make sure that we have this model that is like a safe and good, based on, because we've gotten a lot of research, great research, the good or bad from already like many universities, and now I think it's time to use those and then take actions and validate good or bad. That's totally, I think it's a viable thing to do, because especially a lot of this like hyperscale models, like only those 5 companies taking all the spotlight and all the credits, and we're not giving enough credits to individual actually have those like valuable knowledge and resources that without their consents going in. So those kind of things needs to be filtered, and also it's just brought it up to the public, and so we could be acknowledged. And also then more exposing this kind of stuff will help as a general citizen individual to see, like, there is more careful way, like the more extra thought to that, whether if I use the technology is actually ethically right or wrong. I think that will give the people the opportunity to think about that. And then also the second thing is, again, like it's to do with the government doing their job, where those harm, the individual, the people getting this harm, but currently that we don't really have a place that the individual people to safely go to a place to, and also report and then get the help from. So it's because it's basically like, oh, my intellectual property got stolen by this, like, let's say OpenAI, but like it's just me versus this like giant company that I have to fight with. So I think in order to avoid these kind of very like not very happy ending, or just a situation, I think there needs to be organization, or just like place that we can go, and then also as a government, as a group, as a society, we start gathering this stories as a data and actually share with it, and also be more share as a loud voices. I think that will give us more forces and pressure to those like big companies. Sorry for over 3 minutes.
That is great. Yeah, that was a perfect way to end this round. Now we have one more round with all the panelists who will just speak for 3 more minutes, and don't take me too seriously, right? And just 3 more minutes of, any response you have before we expand and talk with the audience as well. And I'll just say to everybody here in the room that after this round of 15 minutes, we'll have a discussion, and anybody will be invited to talk for 1 minute and, just ask something, bring some context or a proposal or anything with the panelists, right? So let us continue now with Josh.
Yeah, thank you. I'm really just going to pick up where Siavash and Siyoung left off, because that was really where I wanted to end. So what is to be done, right? I think the panel is fairly unanimous that we shouldn't accept the way things are going. So what is to be done? I think, Siavash, I really appreciated the kind of diversity of tactics that you laid out there. Like, we could do this, we could do that, we could do that. And I hope that we collectively are doing all of those things. But coming to the point you made, Siyoung, like, we we cannot, as individuals, do anything to stop this. This will take collective action. So we need to come together. I think forums like this, where we are just talking, we're kind of educating each other, I think this is fantastic, but let's not let it stop here, right? Let's, I think worker organizing actually is the thing that is really going to make the difference. Because when you talk about politics, what politics is all about is, I think, politics is all about allocation of resources. Workers are the ones actually doing the work, and we need to stand up and demand that resources are allocated in a way that benefits us all together. And, together we are very strong. Just imagine if even 10% of Microsoft's workforce went on strike. I think you'd see some changes, actually. Imagine if 10% now of tech workers worldwide go on strike. Now things start to change. So I would really say, like, let's come together, find each other, find like-minded people at your job, and start these conversations. you know, are we okay with having to use AI 30% of stuff, or we get dinged on our performance review? No. Okay, then let's demand this, right? So we have seen successes with collective action, like in the US, the Writers and Actors Guild successfully negotiated a contract where their output couldn't be used to train AI, et cetera. So this is what I really want to kind of leave us with. Let's come together. Let's actually do something instead of just talking about doing something.
Thank you so much. Hira.
Yeah, I think, Siavash, what you said about sort of fixing this on the political level really resonated with me, because you're right. It's not inherently the technology that's the problem. It's our usage of it and our governance, our like very poor governance of it. But I think, you know, in these situations, it's really easy to feel completely hopeless. Like you said, Josh, there's not really at an individual level very much that you can do, but that's kind of true broadly of most problems in society. And so, right, what that leaves you with is, okay, so what can we do then? And I think, you know, basically like a lot of the world's problems, it's a sort of consensus issue, like bringing people together, rallying people towards a common cause is just such a hard problem. And especially in this era where like basically all of the forces that we are subject to are trying to pull us apart and do the opposite and sort of like sow division and sift people into camps such that we can't cooperate. And I think that's because, you know, it's obviously very intentional, because people cooperating on a large scale is very dangerous for sort of established power structures. And so, yeah, I think it's worth a shot. It's very scary, because, you know, when you're talking about being one of those 10% of people who's like putting their job on the line, that's a very privileged position to be in. And, you know, I think it's fair to recognize that not everybody's in that situation, but if you are, or, you know, or if you're in a position of power in an organization, if you're not an individual contributor, if you are a sort of VP or executive or consultant at working with people at those levels, you know, you can try to start maybe sowing some questions like the ones we've been talking about today in organizations at those high levels. I think that can be another sort of approach that has some benefits. It depends who you're talking to, but it's just a sort of shotgun approach. You just fire away and see what sticks. But yeah, I do fundamentally agree that just kind of sitting by and watching the world burn is not really okay. Like, and you know, and I think if you think about it, most people aren't okay with that. It's just that most people don't think about it very much. And so, um, which is, yeah, again, no fault of their own. I think at this point, we're all just trying to survive in this kind of like dystopian capitalist hellscape that we've made for ourselves. But, you know, it's not good to sort of accept defeat and just feel hopeless for the rest of your life. Like what kind of life is that? So, you know, I'm curious to hear what other people think and what paths others see forward. But I'm also sympathetic to the notion that there's no easy answer here.
Yeah, thank you. Ray.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. There's no easy answer. Sometimes these things. I would say that this kind of hellscape has been built by a very few of us, and it's very difficult to be optimistic at the moment that we can fix it in like 5 minutes or even 5 years. So I think we have to be realistic about that. You know, as Siavash said, the Luddites smashed the machinery, but in the end, the governments came for them. They put, you know, if you read the book about Blood in the Machine, Brian Merchant, friend of the show, as they say, you'll see that, you know, the governments made it a capital offense to smash the machines. Now in the end, they did organize, they did do some good, they had the support of the people, but very large forces, as Josh said, were in play against them. And of course, we have a lot of the machinery, a lot of the technology now, you know, in factories that are dangerous to people. We have sweatshops all over the world. So, you know, we are living in a hellscape, but I think we have to, on the one hand, I think there's a lot of good ideas around how could we put a bell on the cat? You know, how could we regulate these people? How could we fix the models to make them more low cost? I think these are all, you know, they're all fairly obvious technical solutions because that, you know, those things definitely exist. But I think also, to Josh's point, we have to have an organizing way to think. Part of it is, although, you know, I don't believe that individual actions will solve systemic problems. I completely understand that and I agree with that. It's my general position. On the other hand, it's important for us as individuals to act with a sense of responsibility, and to, if we act with a sense of responsibility and with a sense of understanding of this technology and where it is and how it's affecting us, we can influence other people around us, and those other people around us may become the consultants, they may become the executives, may become the VPs. Maybe they can have an influence in the company on a larger level. Maybe the discussion here today will be watched by somebody who has a revelation and thinks, oh yeah, actually this is a bunch of evil shit, I'm going to change my mind. Maybe not, but maybe. I think I hold out hope that we can relate to each other on a human level. And, you know, despite the charming aspects of some of the tech that Daniel brought out, which I completely agree with, there's too much evil to accept it. So I think, individually, we should reject it. We should not use it. And we should tell people why they shouldn't use it as well. I think it starts there. Then we can start to have discussions around these things. Meanwhile, yes, let's obviously organize the workplace, organize society to try and reduce the influence of these large corporations. That's not going to be easy. That's a long haul. We just have to accept that we're going to be in for it for a long time. Don't give up. Don't accept the inevitable. Fuck these people. We have to fight. Okay, we have to keep fighting. Don't accept it. Don't assume that they're going to win. Okay. Don't look down. Don't be shy. Don't be embarrassed. Stand up and let's fight.
Thank you so much, Siavash.
I think one danger currently, which is influenced by rise of the LLM, is lots of the investment is going to happen in the AI, and even for the known LLM based, and this is in some cases, especially for the military purpose, it becomes really dangerous. So we have drones completely deciding on what to kill, who to kill, what is the target, just based on some algorithm, and even the human is not deciding. For example, on the mountains of the Afghanistan, it can see that there is some lights and maybe this is wedding, but it thinks that it is a terrorist stations and bombard this. So we have rise of funding in this space as well, in the autonomous guns and so on. So it is really another danger, which it's not categorized under the LLM, but it is influenced by these LLM hypes or this LLM trend. And as a organization, as a building organization for assisting, could any of us or something like Ray or Josh build something like what Stallman did with Geno and so on, build a website and so on, and start this kind of organization as a result of this session? Isn't both interested and is willing to do it.
Yeah, thank you. Siyoung.
I'll try to be short here. So personally, I have my safe bubble, and most of times I stay there because it's a cozy, safe. I'm happy with it. But today I slightly broke my bubble and came out, and I thought and enjoying this session personally, and I thought that was the best decision for this month for me personally, and I just want to do this more. Earlier in my during my undergrad, like I was really poor student, so I had to constantly work part-time, and I was working for a nonprofit organization part-time. So whenever I have extra time, I was working there. There were tens of my coworkers. There were some, injustice happening. And first, like it took time that we noticed, we actually recognize and start having conversation. But eventually we, because we don't really overlap, we're not 9 to 5, like it's hard to see what's going on all the time. But the starting conversation, once it started to happen, slowly we were able to gather around and gather our own stories and be able to make conclusion, and we got unionized. So I personally experienced the happy ending, and even though we are really like far away to go to see like everyone's happy, or is that even possible? I'm not sure, but I think I hope like all of us could sometimes, it doesn't have to be always, but break our own safe bubble and have this kind of session often. That's my hope, and I'm looking forward to hear the rest of audiences, what they're thinking and what they want to do. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for this. Yeah. Can you hear me okay, by the way? Maybe an internet problem. Yeah.
Yep, perfect.
We have 25 minutes now for this discussion to go on before we take a short break before the next session, which will be amazing in other ways. And I think what we wish to do now is to hear everybody. And the structure will be that anybody is invited to write something or to talk for 1 minute and, share some context, ask a question, propose something, bring an idea, and then we'll have somebody of the panelists to respond, and then we'll keep going. And, we have a habit in our conferences that whenever there is something to think about, we ask, should we organize a study group? Right? That's what we do in the closure community. We ask, about whether we can organize in this more conservative sense of, just studying together. And that's something we may do. And I'm bringing that as something that we may make more concrete later on. But I'm not to contradict the braver ideas of organizing in a more, active sense of the word. Great. So let us begin with Michael, who also wrote something, and then Ovi, and then Ian. Michael.
Thanks everyone for this discussion. And can you hear me all right? My voice might be a little hoarse. Yeah, great. So yeah, I actually had recently a pretty positive experience of raising concerns in a big, I work for a university. We're interested. I think there's been this. There's a new initiative to explore uses of essentially large language models in our work, and I sort of raised the question. Okay, so is there a place for critics or skeptics of AI? And in this rather anodyne kind of statement I made created an opening for people who I think don't feel a place to speak up to speak up. And so there's been a bit of a and I made, again, I'm in a position where I'm a manager and I feel somewhat more comfortable making statements, and I think that created a nice opening for people who don't feel like they have a place to raise their concerns. So we'll see where this goes. I am interested, and I really like Kira's point about, again, exploring smaller models. One of my biggest problems with these hyperscale large language models is that we're certainly seeing a centralization around this, that, and there's a lot of problems with centralization. One thing we should all be concerned about, regardless of our feelings of it, is they could pull the rug out from under us at any point in time, and I don't feel comfortable with that at all. Like, right, we're essentially serfs on a feudal manor, and we can be forcibly evicted at any point from these, let's say there are benefits from these technologies. Well, I think that might be only a sort of incidental to their goals of making massive profits and sort of with the technology. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe one or two of the panelists wish to respond.
Yeah, maybe I can go. First of all, Mike, nice to see you face to face. We've been talking, so nice to put a face to a name. I think, like you said, as a manager, you're in an interesting space where, in a way, you have some power to bring ideas into play, and in another way, you are also a bit constrained. So first of all, I just want to say, like, thank you for, bringing forward the question, is there a space in my organization to say no to this stuff or to not be enthusiastically on board? So I think this applies to not only managers, but all of you out there who are, probably if you're at this conference, you're a senior and respected engineer or individual in your company. People do look up to you, whether you know it or not. So I think just asking these questions is so important. And, again, coming back to something you said, Kira, if we can really just insist on, we need to see good outcomes, regardless of how we reach these outcomes. So, like, if your LLM coding assistant is producing good outcomes, cool. But I think this is like, again, just asking these questions and insisting on rigor as engineers, as employees, and so on. I think that's important. I'll stop here.
Yeah, Ray has something to add.
Yeah, I think just to add to your point there, really, Josh, is that usually with technology we have some sort of metrics about whether we succeed or whether we fail, and there's nothing here. It's pure vibes. I mean, we talk about vibe coding even. YOLO. This is like it's kind of like a sick joke, really. So I think it's much better, as implied by Michael, and yeah, also good to see you, Michael. That we need to be open to some skepticism, even if not everyone is going to be like raging and furious as raging or as furious as I'm about this stuff. But if we accept that there should be scope for questioning it, or at least evaluating it, just saying, just asking a question here: is this provably any good or is it any bad? What what are our objectives as an organization with this technology? Where do we feel? Yeah, thank you. Where do we feel like we're going to win, and where do we feel like we could potentially lose? We know that there are risks in adopting this technology because the inputs are very toxic. There's potential for outputs that are also very toxic. That's why we have all these people in the chain to try and remove the toxicity of the outputs. These people in the chain, they're already suffering because they have to work with the labeling and the safety things that are being done are not to do with ethics anymore. The only safety things we have is, will teenage Londoners be able to somehow magic up some kind of bombs out of their flats in East London? That's what the safety is now. It's not like And apparently they're gonna Sora, they're gonna release pornography. So safety is really just about, can this thing be stopped from making bombs or stopped from producing biological weapons? That's the degree of safety that we have. That's the limit we have now on these things. Not to do with whether our organization is like legally liable for the bullshit that our chatbots put out. So I think asking questions about what the potential risks are and what the potential damages to our organization is super important. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, thank you. Now, Ovi, who is, by the way, also the next speaker of the next session.
Woohoo.
Yeah, thank you. First of all, nice to see you guys, and it was a great discussion. One thing that I kind of see, and I'm curious about your experience with this, is as a software developer or software engineer, you tend to observe, or at least I tend to observe, a higher expectation from management or founders in terms of time to implement a feature, because now you have AI, where I think there is a bit of a dissonance where, sure, the code for something is you could generate that super fast with AI, but then debugging, testing, and all of these things make up for the progress you gain in the coding. So I think, and I see online on Reddit and stuff, that this leads to a bit more burnout for engineers, which are basically in a lose-lose situation, because they're either forced to use AI to do the thing that they actually enjoy, and then do more of the thing they don't enjoy. And there are higher expectations on them without actually studies backing up that they will be more productive, to point to prove or back up the expectation of more productivity. So I'm curious if you saw or experienced the increase in expectations based on the new AI auxiliary for coders.
Yeah, I mean, I can definitely speak to that. I work full time currently in, one of these VC funded companies that's got to go and deliver all these returns for private equity people. And I say that with a kind of derisive tone, I guess, but like I'm grateful to be employed and I'm happy to have the paycheck, but it's yeah, I think you see it, I have am clearly an AI skeptic, and people sort of pick up on that. And so I get a lot of private messages from people that I work with, because it's not safe to say, to your point earlier there, there's not really a safe place to come out and like ask questions about this stuff in a lot of corporations, because this perception is so ingrained somehow that it's like necessary to adopt these. But I think, I think so burnout doesn't really actually come from like overwork. Like if you think about some of the most meaningful projects you've ever worked on in your life and most satisfying things you've done, those are probably also among the busiest times in your life, where you are putting in the longest hours and working the hardest. And that's one thing that really hit me hard when I realized it's not the sheer effort that causes burnout, it's the toiling. It's like the effort for no outcome. It's putting in all the effort and just seeing no benefit. And I think that's really the feeling of working with LLMs, is like you're slogging away. It's like working with a really belligerent and stupid intern like all day, and you're just fixing its stuff and fixing the bugs. And for some reason, and this is something that I've really been trying to push at my organization, but I'm getting nowhere. This has been my experience, is that nobody is measuring the outcomes. There's this assumption that it's working. There's this assumption that it's making people faster, and it's costing, probably easily hundreds of thousands of dollars a year in, token spend between, Claude Code and Codex and Cursor and all these other tools. And so, it's costing the company real money. And then if you suggest like, oh, I saw this Dora report that actually seemed to show that increased AI adoption leads to like slower development and more bugs, it's like totally hand waved away. And I don't know. My only conclusion is that the sort of incentives are just like so fundamentally misaligned these days. Like, and this goes back to the sort of broader problems with capitalism and our society in general, is like the point of the company really fundamentally is to just make money for these people who already have more money than they'll ever know what to do with in their life. It's not to deliver a useful product to the customers. It's not to give hundreds of people meaningful employment that they can use to feed their families. It's really, we're just trying to make the numbers go up. And if the people who are giving us money want us to use AI, we'll do it. We'll just do whatever they say. Kind of to your point, Michael, like we're basically like serfs in this like world. And I don't think people realize how vulnerable a position that puts them in either, because, it's true. Like these days, if, when Anthropic goes down for a day, it's like people don't know what to do with themselves. It's like you have 50 engineers sitting more or less idle, being like, oh my gosh, what do I do? And that can happen. That I think it will happen eventually out of necessity. These companies, like clearly this is a bubble that's going to burst at some point. But in the meantime, it can just happen out of sheer incompetence. Like we saw AWS go down earlier this week. These are not companies that are practicing like robust engineering best practices. They're very brittle and very much built on a house of cards. And so, at this point, these AI companies are using their own AIs to write most of the code and most of the products that they deliver. And so it's all very, it's all very just like kind of frustrating. I think, the people in this call sort of are seeing the future a little bit, and it's like watching a train wreck in slow motion, and you're like, what can we do about it? So yeah, I don't really know. But anyway, just to say, Obi, I totally feel that, and I think that's another thing that I'm not exactly sure what to do with. My solution for now is to just, I spend as much time as I can on my own time working on interesting projects and open source things, and staying focused on my career a bit more than my job. But it can add up for sure. Those like long days dredging and trawling away through AI slop are like pretty exhausting in a way that normal programming isn't or wasn't for me before. So yeah, kind of unfortunate.
Yeah, thank you. Before we move to Ian's comments, maybe another response by one of the panelists. Yeah.
Go on,
Ian.
Siyoung, say something.
I want to just like share quickly my personal experience. So I'm currently working for a different company, but previously, like after I moved here, the main reason that I resigned from that job was like I was ordered to use 100% AI code generation while working, and I was stubborn, and also I just couldn't stand it, so I just left. But at the same time, I left the company feeling bad because there was a junior developer that I really liked and enjoyed working with, and also pair programming was such a fun thing to do with. But then my old coworker didn't really have the power to, take action. Also, like he was in a foreign country, very like relying on this company to get the visa, the work visa. And I personally thought I didn't really actively use AI, the code generation at work, because I was always like skeptical about it. But just like testing out here and there, I found that like I didn't really like find the value or validate that it was really good. So like I really like Kira's expression of like it's just like working with intern here and there. But then the current trend and also the previous company I see is like the AI will bring up add more lines of code, and that's the metrics of the key success or just performance of our company, and also like a products building. And I couldn't disagree more. So yeah, like I'm now mumbling, but I see like in my junior time, like the trial and error was the key point where I could grow further up. And I think I feel at this point got lucky that I I got the senior title, and I just had some years of development experience before this. Now, like, there's no jobs for junior developers. And that saddens me, because like the whole technology of tech scene is built upon the human evolution and humans' trials and errors and make things better. But I don't know how this AI, the model itself, could just getting smarter, smart itself out. But it's just currently using the whatever that we as a human, put a data and knowledge into it, right? So like, and eventually I think it will dry up. Yeah, I'm done.
Yeah. Ray will add something.
Yeah, just a small addition, hopefully, is I know you don't mean this, Siyoung, and Kira as well, that it's like an annoying intern, because interns, you might be annoyed by them, but actually they're, you know, like Ovi is saying in the chat, they're the next you, okay? And so I know you don't mean that. We can't anthropomorphize these bullshit computers to be as annoying as our colleagues. Yeah, I was just going to say one small thing to add was that a friend of mine was looking for a job. She's looking for a job in Europe to get away from the fascist hellscape of America. And she was specifically looking for a place that didn't use AI. And actually, she found a few places where the management of those companies were very skeptical of AI and didn't want to use AI and didn't want to make their developers use AI. So I feel like, although I agree, Ovi, with the question that in general, capitalists and owners want to, use AI as a way to kind of augment the workforce, let's say, that in reality, a lot of smarter owners are saying this is bullshit. They're not going to win. We can win with humans, and that's definitely a hope for me. If we're going to stick with capitalism, then let's hope we can win with humans.
Yeah, thank you. Kira, you were going to say something? No?
Yeah, just nodding along in
sorry.
yeah, aggressive agreement. It's yeah, I think it's worth carrying on. I think I'm not ready to give up yet. So
yeah, and now Ian, and then I hope to hear a little bit of Siavash, hopefully.
Yeah, I didn't actually put my hand up. It was a thumbs up to your idea of a study group, because I don't know where to go. I don't know what the next steps are. I am very, very much relieved to see that there are plenty of others that are thinking that we do need to do something about this. And also, I'm pleased to see that there's acknowledgement that this is not just a technical issue, it's a political thing, and that has to be considered too. That's it. I'll pass it over to, I think, Ovi, you put your hand up, didn't you? No? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Siavash, did you have anything to add, I believe?
Nothing more. Just I'm really happy to hear ideas of everyone and be informed by everyone. Thank you, all of you.
I wonder if a takeaway. Sorry, go ahead, Ray.
I was just going to add. I was going to add. Since you said go ahead, I'm going to go ahead. Typical bloke. But I was actually going to say that I'm actually quite impressed by Daniel's selection of the panel. Apart from myself, the rest of the people are,
a huge mistake.
Yeah, a huge mistake for sure. But the rest of the panel, we've got a mix of people from around the world, different genders, ethnicity, nations, and that really warms my heart, to be honest. Getting that mix of, because I think Siyoung said, and I think other people have said, that this is a status quo machine. This is just a machine that will just constantly regurgitate the crap that we've thought before. But actually, what we need is, humans need to think. We need to think, and when we think, we'll think new thoughts, and that's great. And I think this group, this panel, is already helping me at least to do that. So I really appreciate it, and I would like to follow up with all of you for sure outside of this this panel. Already, I mean, 2 hours feels like it's way too short. So thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe what we'll do in a moment is that each of the panelists will just add a little more, like for half a minute or something like that before we conclude. Just because it feels like continuation is needed, let us follow up on the Zulip chat later. And if we feel like it, then we find a private space that is less visible to, be more brave with whatever we make up, right? And now we'll go around again, and then we'll end this session and take a little break. So, Josh.
Yeah, thanks again, Daniel, for putting this together. Thanks for all the other panelists. This was a really great conversation. In terms of what to do next, actually, Siavash, I liked your idea of, can we just destroy capitalism? Can we just try that? Maybe let's start there. And, if that doesn't work out, we'll try something else. But yeah, in all seriousness, I would really recommend to everybody to read the Stochastic Parrots paper. It's amazing that that is 5 years old now, because they really just lay out everything that could go wrong with LLMs and what we should do instead. And it's we did none of the what we should do instead, and everything they said could go wrong did go wrong. So just read that, please. If it's a fast read, it's an hour maybe. So, but thanks again. Thanks for having me.
Thanks so much. Kira.
Yeah, I love this was really enjoyable, and to your point, Ray, I think it is really important to get these sort of diverse groups of perspectives together, because it's so uncommon in the industry, in the tech industry, as we all know. More often than not, Siyoung, I'm sure you're most of the time the only woman in the room, and you're sort of sitting there thinking everybody's like, what do you think? What do you think? And you're like, I'm not going to say what I think here. I'm not an idiot. That's a trap. So, this is, I think, one of the spaces where it is genuinely, this is not a trap. This is an open conversation. And I really appreciate having this opportunity to sort of discuss this kind of stuff. And I would definitely love to keep in touch. So, to your point, Ian, I don't know exactly what that might look like, but maybe we can, for now, at least continue the conversation in Zulip, and then maybe it looks like ongoing asynchronous communication or a study group or something like that. I think one, potentially interesting thing could be, in the interest of keeping it sort of on a technical level, assuming we're going to keep it within Cycloge, not to say we have to, but a sort of space to discuss these types of papers that Josh has shared, or sort of latest research in local language models or small language models. I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff going on in that area that's kind of overlooked in the industry, because there's just, it's no coincidence that the same 5 companies that run the world basically also control all of the media and all of the news that we see. And so we just don't really hear much about a lot of the really interesting work that is going on, and a lot of the people who are writing stuff pushing back against this. So maybe building a little space where we could kind of champion some of that would be really interesting from a technical perspective. But anyway, I'm open to all kinds of different things, but would love to keep in touch one way or another. So thank you so much for having me, and thanks everybody for coming.
Yeah, thank you so much. Ray.
I kind of already wrapped up, but to some extent, a preemptive wrap up. But yeah, thanks again. I think to Kira's point, we need to avoid the monoculture that we're trapped in right now. And that's, on a technical level, that is like a social monoculture, as well as a sort of model monoculture. Because, I think at the end of the day, those kind of what people forget, I mean, it doesn't matter. I'm going to shut up. Thank you very much. We'll follow up offline, and I love you for being on this panel and for participating in the conversation. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Siavash.
I just want to thank you, Daniel, and thank you, everyone. And if it is possible, create some foundation, Josh or Ray, because maybe the first plan is not possible to do, so go to the second plan.
Yeah, Siyoung.
Thank you. Thank you everyone for this such a precious moment and session. I got very emotional every time it's my turn to talk about anything today, but like Kiera says, like it's not a trap. So this is the real place. This is the real safe place. I could be emotional, and most of the time at professional field, like I was taught not to be emotional and always monotone and just chill about it. But I'm so happy that I don't need to be here, and I want to continue to be like this with hopefully with all of you. So I'm looking forward to continuing our conversation and interaction. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. That is awesome.
Yeah, thanks.